We will now introduce moving, scaling, and dimensioning your model. If you select any face, edge, or vertex in your model, one or more, you can then hit the Move button or the M key shortcut. And this will bring up a manipulator as you see here. This allows you to drag linearly your selected elements along one of the three axes. Rotate them, move them within a plane, or do a free move similar to directly click dragging a vertex, for example. Additionally, if you click on any of the axes, you will get a little window in which you can specify an exact amount by which you want to translate the element or rotate it. 10 degrees in this case. The manipulator object is placed along the global coordinate system, x, y, z. However, you can switch to a local coordinate system which is calculated on the specific face or elements you have selected by clicking on the L key for local. So now this manipulator has rotated so as to be perpendicular to this face. You can switch back to global with G or local with L. At the end of the manipulator axis, there are 3 balls. Each one of these balls, when you click and drag it, corresponds to a scaling of the object. Let me show this for the entire model. So now we have a horizontal scale or a vertical scale. If you do this with the Shift key pressed, then the scaling will become proportional, so the entire model will move proportionately and rescale. If you select just a vertex, you can still bring up the manipulator, and the same is true if you select various vertices. By the way, we'd like to mention that if you select multiple vertices and you directly click drag on one of them, the rest of the vertices will follow the movement together rigidly. Now, if you select, for example, one face and one single vertex and then hit the M key, the manipulator will be placed not at the centre of the face, but on the selected vertex. This allows you to position the manipulator in a convenient way to do certain operations. In addition, if you select a face, for example, and you bring up the manipulator, then you do some movement with the Shift key pressed. This will only move the manipulator without affecting the object. In this way, you can reposition the manipulator somewhere else, and then any movements you do without the Shift key pressed, like here, will be around the location of the manipulator. This provides more flexibility in moving elements of your model. If you want to scale your model more precisely, you can select either all of it or some faces, and then click on the Scale button. The Scale button will allow you to do a scaling of the entire model either proportionately or along one of the 3 coordinate axes. So in this window that appears, you can either define a global scale factor, for example, 120%, and click on Rescale Proportionately, which will cause a proportional rescaling of the entire model. Or you can select only one direction, along the y-axis, for example, and scale the model only along this direction. If you select a model, for example, and one vertex, and bring up the Scale window, you will have the option to lock this one selected vertex as an origin for the scaling. So if I rescale the entire model, you see that this vertex has not moved. Whereas, if you select an object and 2 vertices, you still get the option of locking the first vertex as your centre of scaling. But now, you see that apart from just specifying percentages, either proportionately or along the 3 axes, you can also give specific dimensions. So, for example, I will ask for the distance between these 2 vertices along the x-axis only to become 2 units. But since I had rescale proportionately checked, the model rescaled proportionately. Now, if I uncheck this checkbox and I ask for this distance to become, for example, 2.5 units, and I hit scale, you see that the scaling only occurred along the x direction, which we see if we display the axes. Finally, there is one more option for setting directly the coordinates of a vertex by value. So I select this vertex, and I can directly set the coordinates where I want it to lie. I get an indication of the current coordinates here, and I can enter the desired values for x, y, and z in these boxes. This window is a little more complex in the sense that I can do more advanced operations. For example, if I select 2 vertices, I have the following options for each coordinate. I can either directly set the coordinates for both of them, in which case they will both move to the location that I specify, or I can, for example, set the x coordinate for both of them to a certain value, for example, 0.5. And I can make the y coordinate of both vertices to be equal to the y coordinate of the selected first one. So they will all lie within the same plane that is perpendicular to the y-axis. And I can have the z coordinate stay at its current value, leave it as it is. And so, if I do this, the vertices will move in a way that will satisfy all requirements. They will have the same y coordinate, they will have the specified x coordinate, and the z coordinate will not move at all. So these are some ways in which you can specify the location, the dimensions, and the coordinates of elements of your model.